time for the Severe MMA preview show with Sean Sheehan, Spencer Kite, Harry Powell, and your host, Ian O'Neill.
That is right. We back in this bitch, and we've barely any time to catch our breath after a huge UFC 287. We're back into the thick of it at the top of the featherweight division this Saturday night as Max Holloway takes on Arnold Allen in an absolutely huge fight in the featherweight division. As always, I'm joined by Harry Powell and Spencer Kite. We're going to take you through the card over the course of the next hour. Let's get straight into it. Something I'm going to bring to you straight away, Harry, is something I've been thinking about, and Spencer, I'm going to bring it to both of you guys, actually. Something I've been thinking about over the course of the last couple of days, and that's about Max Holloway and him still being in the featherweight division. Maybe we don't, let's not kind of dwell too much on it because it's happening, but my thoughts are, I'm wondering, did Max miss an opportunity here to move up to lightweight? For maybe the sake of himself cutting weight, and also for the sake of the featherweight division as well. He's fought Alexander Volkanovski 3 times. He's lost to Alexander Volkanovski 3 times. Ain't no shame in that. When we're talking about Max Holloway and we're talking about the featherweight division, he is 3 times. Sorry, 3 times. Excuse me. When we're talking about Max Holloway.
Sorry, Harry was just holding up that it was only 2 that he lost.
Oh, right. I was getting confused. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
No, that's all good.
Harry's leading you astray, sir.
That's it. That damn Powell again. Look, when I'm thinking about Max Holloway, in my own selfish way, I would have liked to see him move up to the lightweight division for the sake of himself, like I said, cutting weight, for the sake of the division too, because we are in quite the predicament here if he does get over the obstacle in Arnold Allen this weekend. Harry, I'm just curious about what your thoughts on that kind of statement or that scenario and the position that we're finding ourselves right now in at the top of the featherweight division.
So I think this plays out one of 2 ways, right? The first way is Max obviously takes the short notice fight against Dustin Poirier, goes up, does the 145 thing, and doesn't take the time, as we see when guys do move up, doesn't take the time to adjust his body. Now, the difficulty with that, right, is if you take the time to adjust your body and you add the muscle mass, you add the size, you add the weight, the problem is you're kind of in the same predicament with the weight cut. Maybe it's not as harsh or not as aggressive as your weight cut at 145. Maybe you're walking around closer to your natural walking weight, but you're adding that size on, right? This is something John Jones talked about in his recent move up to heavyweight. Now, obviously, light heavyweight to heavyweight's much different, but what he talked about is he got to a certain size and didn't feel like himself and had to shed a bit of weight, bit of timber, come back down, feels more agile. I wonder for Max Holloway in his personal self, forget us as fans for a second, but for his personal self, I wonder whether he went up, he felt the power, the size, the physicality, the difference of Dustin Poirier at 155, having felt it at 145. And he's like, oh, this is a very, very different thing. And I wonder then in his own career, he looks out at the landscape of it and he says, okay, how long is it going to take me to put on this amount of size? Is it a year? Is it a year and a half? Like, what are we looking at? Do I take fights in between then? If so, what sort of damage am I taking if I go to 155, take a fight? It's not going to be against your bottom of the lower 15, outside the 15. It's never going to be that, right? It's going to be a guy in the upper echelons of 155. Is it worth me at this point in my career, having been so established, taking that leap? So that's from his side. From my side, I mean, personally, I think you're absolutely right. If he goes out there and trucks Arnold Allen and puts on an amazing performance and solidifies himself as the number 1 contender or whatever it is, we're in a really tough spot because the likelihood is, and, I maybe shouldn't say this, but the likelihood is, based on recent performances, Alexander Volkanovski will beat Yair Rodriguez and beat him pretty convincingly. And so what do we do now? Do we do the 4? I don't think we do because it's not the same as Moreno and Figueiredo. So on your assumption there that the fresh matchups at 155 would be enticing, I mean, I would absolutely kill to see Max versus each and every one of those top 15 guys at 155. And so I think maybe not recently he missed it, But maybe after the first loss to Volkanovski, or even the second, where it was a little less close, that's the time you take and that's the time you go up and do the thing. But yeah, we are where we are, right? It's tough.
Yeah, because we're kind of at the danger now of Max Holloway just playing this championship gatekeeper where he's just knocking off guys that are coming in, similar enough to what we've seen in the middleweight division with Robert Whittaker, really. And I'd personally rather avoid that, but I understand what you said about him moving up and things not going his way against Dustin Poirier. Look, yeah, it makes sense why he doesn't want to, but at that stage, like you said as well, Harry, he didn't give himself enough time. And I feel, look, there could be a lot to be said maybe for maybe a 150 catch weight fight with maybe somebody up there. You know what I mean? We'll see. Spencer, I'm interested to hear what your opinions are on that topic before we actually get into the nitty gritty of the fight.
So I think the point about going up there and feeling Poirier's power and feeling that it's a very different division than what he was just at as his natural self is a very salient one, because that to me is part of it, right? Whenever you don't carry over those strengths that have been so beneficial to you in your natural weight class and you don't have those advantages, you have to do that cost benefit analysis of, as Harry said, what's a year take me? And then the other piece of it is he's Max Holloway. He's not going up and facing somebody that's outside of the top 15, just as he's not staying at featherweight now and doing that. And so both for him and for us as observers, we're sort of stuck in this catch-22 because we want to see Max Holloway and we need Max Holloway to be sort of this litmus test, right? This yardstick for everybody. And Arnold Allen talked about that when I spoke to him yesterday. He said, look, you beat Max Holloway, you're proven. I don't care what anybody else wants to say, any of the yeah buts, no, I beat this guy. Doesn't matter that it's 11-0 in the UFC. It's just that I beat Max Holloway. So I'm good. So we need that. But at the same time, we don't need Max Holloway knocking off another guy that's trying to get to the top of the division. I always think of Joseph Benavidez when he lost to Demetrius Johnson for the second time, stuck around at flyweight and fought guys further down the top 15, right? Further down in the top 10, it was Tim Elliott. It was Dustin Ortiz. It was guys that hadn't even quite risen to that level of contender where you're testing them a little bit earlier. And so for me, I would have loved to have seen, and I don't know if this is a thing that Max would have been open to. My guess, my belief from talking to him, from knowing him a little bit, is probably not. But I would have loved to have seen Max Holloway fighting a Bryce Mitchell or a Movsar Evloev or those guys that are on the way up. I mean, he's not going to go Hawaii and fight Dan Ige or anybody like that. But I'd rather see that than see Arnold Allen put into this gauntlet or continue in this gauntlet where he's always got to fight another one. But I mean, if Max wanted to take time, he hasn't fought since July, right? This is the thing for me, is that this was the window. This was the point where you can put on some muscle. You can put on, it doesn't even have to be the full thing. You can just put on a little bulk, go up. Let's see somebody in the top, go up and see what Renato Moicano's up to. Just go up and see that one, right? Moicano's supposed to be in a main event later this month. I believe he's injured. I think that's not happening, unfortunately.
Against Saryukin, shit.
Yeah,
exclusive
sorry.
here on the preview show. I'm good. Spencer, breaking news.
Sorry. But right, a former featherweight, a guy that's done okay at lightweight, becomes a yardstick himself at lightweight. That would be a fight I'd like to see, just as that measurement of where Max is at. It can be a fight night main event, but it's certainly not the kind of name he's used to. And so we're probably going to see, if he does do it, it's right into the thick of things. And then you just don't know. And it ends up either being like the Dustin Poirier fight, or he just says this isn't worth it and he sticks around at featherweight and we're stuck where we are.
100%. Look, you mentioned about the measurement of Max Holloway, and I think this is a good fight for him to see where his measurement is at. But Harry, it's also a good fight to see what measurement that Arnold Allen is at. A guy who, had only one fight in 2021, 2 fights in 2022. That win over Sadiq Youssef, we've talked about this on the preview show. Fantastic win as well. Another fantastic win against Dan Hooker. Got that little bit of jump in quality of competition against Calvin Kattar, but we didn't quite truly get a full look of Arnold Allen in that fight. And that to me kind of leaves lots of questions about him coming in here and fighting Max Holloway and where he's exactly at in his career right now. Would you feel the same?
So I thought I was going to be a contrarian here. First of all, I'm fucking heartbroken that Arnold Saryukin run out of my corner is not happening. I kind of want to wrap this fucking podcast up now and go home. Like, fuck's sake.
I'm sorry. So am I. Hey, look, I was supposed to talk to both of them. I'm disappointed for multiple reasons.
Don't shoot the messenger. I will try not to shoot the messenger, but it's hard not to share that heartbreak together here on the stream.
Completely. We're here for each other.
But yeah, look, I thought I was going to be a contrarian coming into this. And my point is, to me, I can't quite get my head around that Arnold Allen is on this incredible win streak, but I still don't feel like he's really fought anyone like he's fought, Spencer and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's like the Gil Melendez fight is like, okay, it's Gil Melendez, but it's not really Gil Melendez. You know what I mean? And then he rolls into Nick Lentz, and it's like, okay, what's Nick Lentz famous for? Using guillotines to stop Movsar Evloev, like wrestle fucking him? Like, okay, great. Congratulations. The Sadiq Youssef is a fantastic win. Absolutely trademark win. I actually think that's his best win of everything, because we got to see him do a little bit of everything. We saw him do a little bit of the wrestling. We saw him do a little bit of the striking. I don't really pay much attention to the Dan Hooker fight, simply because Dan Hooker at 145 is a misnomer. It absolutely should never happen. And in the same vein, the decision that was made in that fight was Arnold went out, Dan Hooker cracks him, and Arnold's like, well, fuck, I've got 3 minutes and change to put this dude away. And he throws the kitchen sink at him, and he's blind in his left eye, and he manages to get it done. Cool. Do that against Max Holloway, and he will fucking truck you. We then go into the Calvin Kattar fight. Okay, he goes out. He looks okay in the first round. Calvin Kattar, not the biggest starter, not the fastest starter. He's a guy that warms up into fights. We saw in the Zabit Magomedsharipov fight. We see what happens. He grows into these fights. Calvin Kattar at the 5th round is an absolute monster of a man in comparison to Calvin Kattar in the first round. And so again, I'm not saying that it's not a credible win. I'm not saying anything like this, but I just still don't feel like Arnold Allen's had that really, really tough test. And what Max Holloway is right now to me is Caitlin Chikagian, in that he is an absolute destroyer for everyone that's not the champion. Now, the big question for me coming in here is, who's Max Holloway? He is an absolute veteran at this point, in terms of not necessarily his actual age, but the fight time, the wars he's been in, the situations he's put himself in, the camps, the weight cuts, everything.
I think it stems, sorry to interrupt, Harry. I think like in recent conversations that we've been having on Severe, and yourself and Sean in particular, about the introduction of young fighters into the UFC, I think one of a big prime example is that of Max Holloway, who came in around the same time as Rosas Jr., and who came in fighting elite level competition and winning too at the same time. But I think the big question that we don't have with Rosas Jr. is that how is that going to affect him in 10 years time? And we're kind of getting into that time scale now with Max Holloway. Would you agree?
Absolutely. What does Shawnee always say about careers? He says, as an MMA fighter, you might have a 9-year career, 12 if you're really lucky. And there's a prime in there. And that prime is 3 to 5 years. I think we've seen the prime of Max Holloway. Like, that prime of Max Holloway is when he absolutely runs through Jose Aldo, when he goes out and he destroys Calvin Kattar, when he goes out and has a really, really close couple of fights with Alexander Volkanovski. And then, as Spencer and I talked about a little bit earlier, you watch the third fight and it's like, ooh, something's changed. There's a change here. Now, I would argue on the side of Alexander Volkanovski just decided, okay, fuck this. I'm going to get so much better than this guy that it's really not going to be close. And I've seen 50 minutes of this guy already. I don't need to see any more. I've got this guy. But then you question. Max has had the slip with Bisping in the interview. Fight gets cancelled. We've had the slurring of the words. We know the sort of damage that he's taken. We know the sort of fights that he's in. You hear him now. Spencer, I'm sure, will tell you in a moment that he doesn't quite sound the same as maybe 19, 18-year-old Max did. And so, to your point of the age and the introduction and everything else, how much of this is that we're actually seeing a fighter deteriorate in front of our eyes, you know?
Yeah, and unfortunately, like we're going to see that one way or another inside the cage, whether it's be Saturday night, whether it be another fight down the line. Spencer, what are you thinking heading into Saturday night? You know, you've obviously had the opportunity to speak to both gentlemen, perhaps, and you know, you'll get to see them in there on Saturday night. What are your feelings that you're getting from both of these gentlemen before they go in and throw down on Saturday night?
I mean, first to Harry's thing of the question being who is Max Holloway at this point? My story on OSDB on Friday, my column is literally what's next? Where does he go from here? Like, I can argue, as Harry just sort of touched on, well, yeah, the third fight with Volkanovski is 50-45s across the board, but I think Alexander Volkanovski is the best fighter on the planet. And so I can't really hold it against somebody to lose to that guy who went out and clearly leveled up. But at the same time, I see the Max Holloway lost the 5th round to Yair Rodriguez. That was a closer fight than I thought it would be. And then the fight with Volkanovski happens. And then I speak to him on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, and I've talked to Max throughout his career. I've been fortunate to be at a few of his events, including one out there in Saskatchewan. And he just doesn't sound like the guy that I talked to 5-6 years ago, yet alone back when he's 20 years old, right? I'm going to give the super young Max some leeway because he's young. He's not used to this stuff. He's not, you know, and so there was an awkwardness. There was a shyness, but there was that stretch where Max was one of the biggest stars in the UFC. That's not to say he's not anymore, but he was front and center. He was headlining pay-per-views. We saw a lot of him and he was sharp. He was on point. He was crisp with it is what it is. And it became a thing. And there was all this, the best is blessed, baby. And he was captivating in his own unique way. And now it just feels that little quarter beat slower. And I'm not going to sit here and play neurologist. I'm not going to sit here and play doctor. I'm not one, never played one on TV. Didn't stay at a Best Western Express last night. But it's just a little worrisome, right? It's just a little worrisome because of all of the things Harry said, all the things Shawnee talks about. Careers are a certain amount of time. Well, he started in the UFC at 20. And this will be this is year 12, year 13. He's been in all kinds of wars. His last 7 fights, all went 25 minutes. As much as he holds the record for the most significant strikes landed, he's probably pretty high up there on the list of significant strikes absorbed as well. And so you just start to wonder. And it's not, I don't wish this upon him I don't wish it upon anybody. But as people that watch this sport and as stewards of this sport and these athletes' careers, you have to say it. You have to talk about it because he's one of those athletes to me that this can get away from him real quick. And I desperately don't want to see that. He has a beautiful family. We've seen it. It's in the UFC Journey piece that's on ESPN Plus this week. That was the first thing I talked to him about was like, look, man, it looks like you got life sorted now. Like everything is good. He and his beautiful wife, Alessa, are building their dream home. He wanted to clarify in her hometown, not his. He gave in. He understands. Happy wife, happy life. And I just said, like, what's pushing you at this point? And he's talked about, hey, I can't say for sure that I won't get another crack at Volkanovski and we won't cross paths.
He's also very confident. I heard him speaking with Brett Okamoto this week, Spencer, where, you know, he's pushing for another title shot. He feels that he can still get it done. And I'm listening to that and I'm not believing it, to be honest. And, you know,
Saturday is going to be really interesting. Saturday's really, it's an inflection point. It really, truly is. And we don't say that very often. I hate when we overdo the crossroads of things, but this is an inflection point. Because Max Holloway hasn't been stopped since that debut against Dustin Poirier. When he's a 20-year-old, when it's short notice, and he hasn't grown into his ears. He's a 31-year-old former champion now. And if Arnold Allen goes out, a guy that we all love, but as Harry said, as you agree to, as I agree to, hasn't really quite fully proven himself, and he goes out and puts it on Max Holloway, we need to have a conversation on Monday morning about the future of Max Holloway.
100%. Harry, I'm going to go to you for the nuts and bolts of this fight. Where you see the advantages, the disadvantages. And while we have been talking about Max Holloway and his situation, this is the biggest fight of Arnold Allen's career. This is his, you know, his crowning moment where he can finalize, well, fingers crossed. We maybe talk about that a little bit after the nuts and bolts. Fingers crossed he gets the title shot if he comes out with a win over Max Holloway here. When you're looking at these two guys and you're looking at the positives and the negatives, what are the standout points to you?
So I think if Max is Max, this is a horrific matchup for Arnold Allen. A horrific matchup. Arnold is a man that likes to fight with a rhythm, but the rhythm that Arnold fights in is he can also be lured into a rhythm, right? We saw it against Mads Burnell where he gets put on the back foot and just never quite is able to make the adjustments or switch up mid-fight to be able to then change the game plan. Now, he finds the ninja choke, right? He finds a way out, but even he will say now he was getting beaten that fight and he just managed to find a Hail Mary, did the thing, and he runs away with the win. No problem. You then see the positives to that. Against Sadiq Youssef, he's on his feet, he's light, he's moving forward. The Gilbert Melendez was a great example of this. Gets the jab going, the Faraz Sahabi jab, the TriStar jab, gets the hooks working, hits the body well, doesn't kick a lot, fine. But if Max is on, the pressure, we saw it again against Mads Burnell. Now, we saw it equally against Dan Hooker in a slightly different way. When Arnold is under pressure, whether that be he's taken a crack to the eye and there's a problem with the eye, the decision-making goes out of the window. We have two examples. Once is a mistake, twice is a choice or a trait, right? Against Mads Burnell, wasn't able to change it up, wasn't able to fix the holes, wasn't able on the fly to make adjustments. Against Dan Hooker, he decides to go, yeah, my eye's fucked. Here we go. We're doubling down. We're pushing all our chips into the middle and we're going to give this a go. Max Holloway has such a beautiful style for somebody like Arnold, who doesn't do a ton of switching. Max will do all of the switching. He'll switch outside of range. He'll switch through punches, the volume shots, the range, the length, the leg kicks. And what we saw against Yair Rodriguez, whether this is a function of Max being like, oh, I'm taking too many shots here and I can feel my chin is starting to wobble a little, he mixes in the wrestling, and not just the wrestling, but he can grapple too. It's not just I'm going to wrist ride you against the fence and I'm going to weigh you down, do whatever. He can do some of the grappling things. We've seen him sub people in his career, not often, but we've seen it. Arnold Allen, it's more an opportunistic style. He's got good anti-wrestling. Again, we saw that against Sadiq Youssef, who's a good grappler in his own right. I just feel like if Max is on, the pace, the pressure, the footwork, the range is all types of problems for Arnold Allen. However,
sorry, you mentioned the switching of stances for Max Holloway, which we all know, causes some trouble when we are utilizing a stand-up battle. But the switching of the stances can also cause trouble in initiating grappling sequences as well. And I think that's a double problem that Arnold Allen is going to have to face on Saturday night.
100%. And you don't see Arnold set a guy up, make him switch stance, shoot on a single, all that too much. He likes to box. He likes to be in range. If he gets you up against the fence, fine. He might do a couple of double legs or whatever it is. Other than that, it's sort of like counter wrestling, counter grappling. And that's fine. I think this is actually where my interest comes, is Arnold has one thing. If we were to do a top trumps, right, and we rate everything, Arnold's physicality is like an 11, right? And Max Holloway's is probably like a 6 or a 7. Not the most physical guy, gets away with some really good technique stuff, isn't the big, strong, big bastard. Arnold Allen is the big, strong, big bastard, right? And so if we're getting into grappling exchanges, I wonder what happens if Arnold's managed to turn the tide. If Arnold does get it against the fence and he switches it up and he makes it dirty and gritty and grindy for Max. The cardio of Max has never seemed to drop off drastically. But if you've got a guy here who is way stronger than me and he keeps lifting me and he keeps dropping me and he's dragging me and he's doing this and he's making me work and it's hard and I'm squeezing and I'm moving, and who knows? Who knows?
Absolutely. Spencer, like what Harry said, I'm looking at this contest and I'm trying to find ways that Arnold Allen can get the job done, and I have a very difficult time doing that, if I'm being honest. mention of, look, at making this a dirty, gritty fight is one that just stands out at the top of the list for Arnold Allen that he needs to come in here and do in this fight. He cannot stand and just straight box. He cannot straight strike with Max because I think he's going to get eaten alive. He's going to have to come and close the distance, show Max a couple of different looks. How do you see him trying to get the job done on Saturday night?
So for me, first and foremost, it is that closing the distance, being the big, strong bastard that he is, right? We all have seen the videos of his dad, strongman, powerlifting, all of this stuff. And Arnold has inherited a lot of that. He is a absolute unit. He is an absolute powerhouse. And he's got to put that in. He's got to put that to work. He's got to get inside. He's got to make Max feel him, physically wear him. That's part one. On the feet, to me, it's got to be blitzes. It's got to be get in, land combinations, throw combinations, hurry in, close the distance behind your hands, behind those big power shots, and then get all the way out. If you hurt him, if you get inside, if you get into those clinch spots, great, stay there, use it. But if it's blitz and we land and Max is moving well and firing back, all the way out, don't give him the opportunity to set a range. Don't stand there and try to kickbox with this guy. It's a bad look. Mr. Powell?
The only thing I was going to ask you, actually, is I agree with the blitz tactic. The problem is going to be when he's all the way out, the footwork has to be so perfect because Max is going to chase him all day long. And my question was going to be to you, when do you think exhaustion starts to set in?
So this is going to be part of it. I also think that Arnold Allen has to take the approach of, I can't win a 25-minute fight with this guy. Now, that's on the assumption that Max Holloway is Max Holloway. And that Arnold Allen is, and I hate saying it this way, but is just the guy that we've seen thus far. And those are two very unanswerable questions right now. And that's the bit that makes this so fascinating to me, is that what if Arnold Allen is just set to level? Like, what if the Calvin Kattar fight was going to be the night that we see Arnold Allen level up and he goes out there and he puts it on Cal? Because I talked to him and I said, like, do you feel jinxed a little bit? Do you feel a little snake bitten? And he was like, I've always trusted the process. I've known I'm always going to get here. And then he took a deep breath and he's like, are there nights that I'm at home feeling annoyed that this stuff keeps happening? Yeah, of course. Have I asked myself, did I miss my opportunity? Absolutely. But the end of the road is what matters. And that's the right mindset. But like, what if that night against Calvin Kattar is just the night, right? He finds his range early. All the things you said about Cal being a guy that grows into the fight and is better in the fifth round, all true. What if he didn't get there? Like Arnold said to me, look, I felt pretty good in that first round. I found my range. I found my timing. And once I get it, I don't really tend to lose it. And so was he going to piece this dude up and maybe get him out of there inside of 5 rounds without getting to those championship rounds where we finally get the moment to go, okay, here's the guy. Because we've expected him to get to kind of this level, maybe not even this level. Maybe he's already an overachiever, but the progression of continuing to win says, let's just see. What if there is that next level? And we just haven't gotten a chance to see it because, you know, the Calvin Kattar fight went the way it did. That's the piece I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, definitely. As am I as well. A couple of thoughts that I have coming into the fight is that, do I think Max, are we going to see the classic Max Holloway? I don't think we are, but I think it's still going to be enough to get the job done against Arnold Allen. I think what the problem that Arnold Allen is going to have to face is he's going to be stuck in the predicament of having to move forward and close the distance. And he's probably going to get the jab in the face from Max Holloway to keep him away. And then I'm very curious to see how Arnold Allen performs and maintains his cardio when he's likely going to have to be moving on the back foot for the majority of this fight for however long it lasts for. Do I see Max Holloway going out there and getting the finish? I struggle to see that scenario. If Max was to get a win, I would feel it'd be like one of those dominant, maybe one-sided stand-up striking battles. It's up to Arnold Allen here to close the distance, to impose his will on this fight. And I'm very, very excited to see if he can do it. It would be an absolutely monumental win. And it would probably set up it'll probably set up a title fight. I stuttered saying that statement twice because we just don't fucking know. But what we do know, Harry, is that we are going to get violence in the co-main event against with Edson Barbosa and Billy Quarantillo. I'm looking forward to this one. Maybe not from a competitive standpoint, but definitely from an entertaining standpoint.
If this was 5 years ago, I would say that we're going to see Edson Barbosa put a man in a shredder, and just the crowd is going to be shattered with all of the pieces of Billy Quarantillo. You know, I don't know though. I don't know. Edson at 145 isn't the same man. I'm very down on this fight, if I'm really honest, right? Like, I think it will be fun for as long as it lasts. Edson's still Edson in the sense that he looks beautiful when he throws his techniques. He's still up for a firefight, whatever else. But he's very long in the tooth from a fighting perspective. He's had the wars. We've seen him finished. We've seen him badly beaten. We've seen him dominated. And then he drops to another, like a lower weight class, looks like absolute shit on the scales, like fuck weight cutting once again. And I don't know. Billy Q is a guy that's maybe not the most technical guy, maybe not the most brilliant guy. I really can't see him fighting for a title at any time in the future, but he's raw, he's tough, he's gritty, he's got pace, he's got pressure, and he can crack a bit. And what's sad to me is that might be enough to beat Edson Barbosa in 2023. And that, I don't know, that just saddens me.
It's the sad reality of the situation, really, isn't it, Spencer? I mean, Billy Q picked up a great win against Alexander Hernandez, but he's definitely going to be coming in here and viewing this as the biggest fight of his career, with the biggest name that he's been in there with. He's been in there with Burgos and Klida and stuff like that. But when it comes to absolute killers and the style of fight that Billy Q likes to fight in, this is a dream matchup for him. And I'm just curious to hear about your thoughts about his mentality might be coming in here. And I know you had the chance to speak to Edson Barbosa, and he's looking forward to getting in there as well.
I mean, yeah, Billy Q's got to be licking his lips, right? Like, never seen a fist fight that he hasn't been interested in, and he's going to get it here. Like, this is, as Harry said, this is perfect dance partner for Billy Q at this stage of things. I too don't think. I mean, Billy Quarantillo is 34, so let's be honest here. This is about the height it gets to, right? Like, he maybe climbs into the lower third of the top 15. He's not beating some of these young kids that can wrestle. He got punched up by Alex Hernandez in the first round of that fight, all bloodied, and then does Billy Q things while Alex Hernandez did Alex Hernandez things, and they switched positions, and he gets the finish. As Harry said, 5 years ago, Edson Barbosa smashes this dude. Even 3 years ago, right? This looks like kind of the Shane Burgos fight. And that's what I'm looking to see. Is this, can Barbosa make this or dial back some of that Burgos fight, where it's a competitive fight, but he's a little bit quicker and he's a little bit more varied in his approach. He's got a few more weapons and he's able to get it done because he's pumped. Like, there's no two ways about it. And listen, every fighter is going to tell you they are super excited and they still love it and all of those things. When somebody tells me that they're not, when I sit down and say, how are you feeling? Where are we at? Like, what are we doing here? First one that tells me, I'm not really feeling this anymore, I don't know why I'm here, will be the first one to ever tell me that. That said, it's not like he's looked awful of late. And so this is sort of that, like, how much has he got left? Where does it go? And I asked him, when do you think about, like, when do you decide that I got to go? Like, this is it. He said, when I don't like getting up anymore, when it can't be competitive anymore. And so there's a little piece of me that thinks if he goes out and he gets stopped by Billy Quarantillo and it's 3 straight losses and he's been out for over a year, he had to pull out of a fight last year against Ilia Topuria, which sort of feels like a thank God, even though it's the first time he had to pull out and he's really dejected that he had to pull out of a fight. If it becomes 3 in a row, I wouldn't be surprised to see him be like, okay, get me a fight in Brazil later this year or early next year. We'll do one more and then we'll go. But we'll see, because as we all know, you go out and you have a nice performance, you get a finish over somebody, it suddenly just feels like, we're back, baby. Let's keep rolling. when it
Yeah,
should maybe be, we're going out on a high. Let's just
exactly.
sunset.
Yeah, a
We'll
fairy
see.
tale, but we never get those in mixed martial arts. How about this? Maybe a possible Edson Barbosa versus Max Holloway fight at 155 for both gentlemen, depending on how things go. What about that? I don't know. Maybe. Yes, no, maybe.
I'd certainly watch it.
I think it would work great for both guys. But look, that has to be all said and done on Saturday night. Next, Harry, we're talking about two big knockout artists in the light heavyweight division. Man, I just love two bangers going in there. Two guys who want to stand and bang. I'd be surprised if it didn't materialize this way in the light heavyweight division. Justin Jacoby versus Amzat Muzarkanov. Jacoby coming in here with 11 knockout wins. Muzarkanov coming in there with 9 knockout wins. I can expect to see some heavy shots thrown in this fight.
Yeah, the thing I like about Jacoby, and let's not talk about judging or Khalil Roundtree or whatever, right? But he's just your traditional bread and butter kickboxer that's learned how to do a bit of grappling, stop a bit of grappling, and he just knows how to fight. That's the greatest compliment that I can give him. There's nothing out there that's overwhelmingly impressive necessarily or risk-takey or any of these things, but he's one of those guys that he's going to go in and he's going to be in your face for the entire fight, and his footwork's good and he moves his head well. He's got a nice jab, and when he cracks you, it really hurts. And I think this is a really interesting test for Muzarkanov because that's a destroyer of a dude, right? He likes going in and mauling dudes. You don't really do that against Justin Jacoby unless you're an unbelievable talent. And so this to me is and I know we use him every fucking podcast, but this is the Neil Magny, right? If he goes in and he trucks Justin Jacoby, we all stand up and we say, all right, come on, let's do it. Let's put this guy on the thing, put him on the fast track. We'll go and watch this guy. Which is what I think will happen. I think Justin Jacoby is going to be in there and it'll be a competitive fight. I'm not sure I can pick a winner necessarily because when you go in and you're riding high and you're doing all of these great things, it's a little bit like Alex Morono, right? You go in, you fight Alex Morono and you're like, he's a bit pudgy and he's bald. I'll truck this guy. And then he's like, watch. And then he's way harder than you think it is. That's this fight to me.
Yeah, very, very well said there. Spencer, we're going to get through these fights as quickly as we can. Down to the 205 division, Ion Cutelaba versus Tanner Boser. I think the only talking point here for me is kind of Tanner Boser moving down to the 205 pound division. Any thoughts on that move down? Do you think it's going to suit him? Do you think it's going to help him? What do you expect to see in this fight?
I mean, to steal from Harry before getting the actual swipe, I don't know. And that's what I'm interested in. Like, he clearly was on his way down to this division when he fought the last time against Rodrigo Nascimento, couldn't get up off his back and basically just got held on the ground for the better part of 2 rounds and then was like, man, I got held down. And it's like, what'd you expect? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, you're 220, he's 260. This is math. I'm curious to see what he looks like because movement-wise, footwork-wise, kind of a little bit more athletic than you probably think when you think of a guy that's kind of a big lumberjack Canadian from Alberta. So we'll see. Cutilaba's, he's this dude that if you're any good, you smash him. You just smash him, right? He's been finished in the first round a bunch of times. He's a sub 500 fighter in the UFC. And if you have any upward mobility, as a 31-year-old Tanner Boser probably still should, you truck him. And you go out there and you make a statement and it's okay. We got a new guy to pay attention to at 205 and they're coming to Canada. They're coming right next door to Alberta in June. Let's see if a healthy Tanner Boser can make a quick turnaround and maybe face the winner of the Jacoby Murzakanov fight or somebody a little further up. But if you go up and you lose to Ion Cutelaba, then we're having different conversations. And so I just want to see, like, physically, I want to see what he looks like because he's always looked like a guy that should be fighting at 205 and just didn't need to because screw weight cutting and all of those things. But, like, let's see physically what he looks like and then let's see what he can do getting in there against a guy that we know the level of Cutelaba. Go out there and beat him, show us that you're above and get some opportunities.
100%. A big opportunity is landing on the lap of Chris Gutierrez in the next fight. He's taking on Pedro Munoz. He's riding a 7-fight win streak, Harry, coming into this fight. And a guy who I quite enjoy watch competing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he's doing here with his number 2 veteran test. He took out Frankie Edgar relatively easy at UFC 281. He's coming in here against Pedro Munoz this time out. And he's a guy who's been battling through killer's row of guys outside the 15 and the top ranks of the bantamweight division, and I feel this one might get more. Is he ranked already? Maybe he squares into the rank after Frankie Edgar. Yeah, apologies. Now it's time to maintain that and move up into the top 10 and get a couple of decent challenges. I'm excited to see him fight. Are you excited to see him go in there against Pedro Munoz? And it's a difficult test too.
It's a difficult test because of what Pedro brings, but it's also the right type of fight for Chris Gutierrez, right? It's not going to be a grindy, gritty, I'm going to put you up against the fence, try and hold you, take you down, ride you, etc., etc. Pedro's going to come out and he's going to try and strike, right? He stands in that long stance. He likes the kicks. He likes blitzing in. He likes shots. Gutierrez, fantastic low kicks, really sharp strikes, knows his way around a cage, can do all of the things. And for me, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I have a sneaky feeling like Gutierrez is going to truck him. I just have a feeling.
I kind of do too, Harry. I'm with you when you're saying that, man. He's got some good power, doesn't he?
Like Pedro is a tough guy. He doesn't get finished easy. Always gritty. Knows he can, knows his way around a fight. Knows how to defend himself at all times. But I just have a feeling. Maybe I'm wild. Maybe. I just have a feeling.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting that feeling too, but at the same end of the stick, Spencer, it's hard not to see what happened in that Sean O'Malley fight where Pedro Munoz was very competitive before the eye poke happened. That fight was well up in the air. Obviously, Sean O'Malley went on to get a win over Peter Yan. So, I mean, without solely relying on MMA mats, I think, it would be foolish to fully count out Pedro Munoz in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super fascinated by this fight because it's we were talking about Arnold Allen earlier and how despite 10 straight wins, we kind of don't quite know where he fits. Chris Gutierrez, same thing, unbeaten in his last 8 fights. I have no idea whether this guy is a top 15 bantamweight or not. He's beaten enough guys to get himself there. But this is the one that tells me, because Pedro Munoz, despite the struggles lately, is a guy that's tenured in this spot. And, we've seen him put dudes out. We've seen him go out there and win hard 15-minute fights. We've seen him, run level with former champions, former contenders, be the tough test for a lot of these guys. And so I can't wait to see this one.
Yeah, me too. This is a really, really interesting one. As we work our way down the card, Spencer, I'm going to stick with you. We're talking about Clay Guida coming in here for his 61st mixed martial arts fight. Let that sink in for a minute. Full-time mad bastard Clay Guida takes on Rafa Garcia. And I mean, we can get into, should he be fighting? Anytime I see the energy of Clay Guida, it's something that I want to see. It's something that I need in my life. He's coming in here against Rafa Garcia, who can be a dangerous fighter in his own right. We've seen him get some good wins. We've seen him lose at the same time. You're getting a tough fight when you're going in there against Rafa Garcia, but you also know you're getting a fucking tough fight when you go in there with Clay Guida too.
And he made his UFC debut at UFC 64 in October 2006. Right? Shit. 2006. Former Strikeforce champion back before Strikeforce was even Strikeforce. Had his first fight in a strip club. That's how long this dude has been going at this. And yet still will run out to the prep point on Saturday, probably to My Hero by the Foo Fighters. He'll get his brother to smack him in the face a bunch of times. He'll do laps around the octagon. He'll be full of energy. And I am all the way here for it. My question on One Question this week was, how long can he keep doing this? Not from is the end near for Clay Guida? Literally from how much longer do I get to watch this? Because I'm watching this until the wheels fall off. Now, historically, he's struggled in this spot against younger guys that are more athletic and, the Claudio Pueyases and some of the losses recently. where the wins have been against veteran guys, Scott Holtzman, Leo Santos, things like that. So this doesn't quite line up great for the Carpenter. But like, look, man, he's going to make it to the end of round one. He's going to sit in the corner. He's going to let out a massive burp, and I'm going to smile and enjoy it, because this is one of the like OG original, just one of the first guys that you fell in love with when you started watching this sport, just because of the personality. Because truthfully, and I say this with all the love in the world, this dude shouldn't still be here. Skill-wise, skill for skill, he shouldn't be here. But he's figured it out, and he's still here, and I love it.
I think there's something to be said for this too, right? Where it's that you don't get fighters like him anymore. You don't get humans like him anymore.
No.
Where okay, let's not see him against anyone good, right? Obviously, sure. But he manages to find a way through his style, through his energy, through his will to be competitive enough in 2023, right? Where mixed martial arts has never seen a higher level. Now, okay, he should have seen the knee bar from Puelles coming from row Z, right? Because everyone else in the stadium saw it. It just happened that he didn't. Grand, no problem, fine. But to still be fighting when everyone else is literally retiring from their full-time careers is incredible. And you look at him, you look at Jim Miller, you look at Joe Lozon, who obviously has recently moved to the Saineville and left MMA. But it's just, I don't know. You don't make humans like Clay Guida anymore.
No.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree anymore. I can't wait to see him go in there, feel his energy, and see what he can muster up for us in the lightweight division. TJ Brown versus Bill Algeo are fighting in the 145-pound division. Congratulations to both men. We wish them a great fight, because I want to concentrate on the next fight after that. And I don't want to get into a kind of a general discussion on where this fight should be in the card. I feel that this should be a light should be shining on the main card.
Co-main event.
But talking about top contenders here in the flyweight division, when Brandon Royval takes on Mateus Nicolau. And I mean, it doesn't matter, guys. Like, this is the trend that we've been having when we're talking about these flyweight fights in the top 15, and even some outside of the top 15. It's kind of similar to that of the bantamweight division. They're all fucking bangers. And I cannot wait to see these two throw down on Saturday night. I'm a big fan, Spencer, of Mateus Nicolau. I like his style, polished striking, doesn't waste any movement. Royval, we know, is just this guy, Energizer Bunny, who's going to be wanting to create scrambles, very opportunistic kind of submission artist as well. But he does have his flaws as well. I feel I'm looking at Nicolau as an opportunity to kind of knock Royval down, maintain his spot, and probably maybe move up maybe one or two in the flyweight division. But I think when it's all said and done today, we've just had the announcement of Brandon Moreno versus Alessandro Pantoja. Fantastic fight. Give me all of that shit. I think with a good win here, I think I would go out on a limb and say if Nicolau goes out there and puts on a stellar performance and gets a finish, we could be talking about him as the next contender. We want to see some fresh meat there up at the top of the 125-pound division, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this fight.
So I broke news to you guys earlier. You broke news to me. I bounced out of the house for a couple hours and had said on one question, like, we need to get that fight announced, because the longer it goes, the more I worry that Pantoja isn't going to get that fight. Happy to hear it announced. Can't wait to see it. Look forward to it. I think Mateus Nicolau might be the best flyweight in the world. This is the thing that I'm waiting to see. Continues to grow into himself. The performances are getting better and better, right? Close couple of fights when he first comes back. Wins both of those. Manel Cape, can't remember the other one. Then he goes out and he looks very good against David Dvorak. Then he goes out and he finishes Matt Snell in brutal fashion. He's 7-1 in the UFC. He's like 28 years old. Nova União guy. Girlfriend Lou Pinheiro just got a good win last weekend. Family's on the rise. Everybody's feeling good. This is a guy that just might be able to do it all. And we're going to find out, because Brandon Royval is an absolute lunatic. The title of Tom Gervaisi's interview with him, or whoever from the UFC staff interviewed him this week, is there cannot be peace without chaos. I mean, that's Brandon Royval to a T. We're going to get mad bastardry. We're going to find out which one is next in line. I am all in. You said you didn't want to get into the conversation about it. I agree. This should be the co-main event, though. Co-main event this. I'm the guy that often does the like, hey, fight placement doesn't matter. We still know this is a terrific fight. But for the folks that are just tuning in and need to know these people and aren't going to watch the prelims at 2:00 in the afternoon or whatever it is, this is your co-main event, because the winner of this should be fighting for gold next.
I couldn't agree anymore, Spencer. Like, we're talking about number 5 versus number 4 versus number 5 in the division. It's like, Harry, it makes itself, doesn't it? Are you high on as high as Spencer on Mateus Nicolau and his chances of becoming the champion? I'm kind of quite there too. I've seen growth each time he's gotten in there. And, you know, that builds anticipation for me and seeing what he can produce in a difficult fight. This is a difficult fight for him against Royval. I'm very excited to see what goes down. What are you kind of expecting to see?
I don't think it's a difficult fight for him. I really don't. Like, he is too clean. He hits really, really hard for a flyweight. And we're in a situation where Royval gets hit. Right, we've seen him get hit. Royval, how do I express this properly? Like, Royval has to create chaos in order for himself to succeed, right? You're not going to see him go out and have a technical points battle where he breaks a fighter down, out footworks them, out angles them, finds his wrestling, finds his grappling, finds his submission attempts, and then also does a bit of the striking. You just don't see it. Right? He's jumping on people's backs. He's diving for legs. He's looking for low ankle picks. He's barreling himself into clinch situations and cage wrestling and jumping flying triangles and doing all sorts of mad stuff. That mad stuff gets you murked when you're fighting clean technical guys, right? I think back to Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier. Dustin Poirier looks at Gaethje and was like, let's have some fun. Has some fun for 2 rounds, and he's like, okay, we're done here. Right, we're done here. I'm going to just show you now that fighting is not what you think it is. And Brandon Royval, the thing that I struggle with Brandon Royval is he's so much fun, but it feels like he's bought into that. It feels like he's bought into I must go out and do such mad shit that my shoulder dislocates and I can't continue to fight. Right? And that is a real shame, because if you were able to hone some of that potency in his finishing abilities and his ability to see a position, see a submission, and jump on it, you've got a serious fighter. But Nicolau is a man that to steal Chuck Liddell, he's the Iceman when it comes to the fire of Brandon Royval. Now, to say that can Brandon Royval not go out there, create a mad scramble and find something, 100% he can.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was more alluding to, more so that it's going like potentially dangerous fight for him. I would feel,
1 million%. But if Nicolau has shown us anything, is that he is a man that is really, really happy at sticking to his P's and Q's and breaking fighters down over time. If this was a 5-round fight, I would be telling you that I am giving Brandon Royval a sub 10% chance here. A 3-round fight, he's got more gas, more ability to explode into positions and submissions and all these stuff. And we know that flyweights can go, right? But I just feel like that first round, Nicolau's going to find the reads, start to pick him off, break him down, and then it's going to get real tough real quick for Brandon Royval.
No, you mentioned Royval going in there and kind of fighting towards entertainment and stuff like that. I think maybe we should label all the fighters that have that a case of the Kevin Hollands or something like that. You know what I mean? Because we were talking about Kevin Holland ahead of the last fight where he goes crazy. We didn't actually see that from Kevin Holland, and look what happened. He fucking won the fight. You know what I mean? So there's a lot to be said for that kind of statement.
Who'd have think it? Who'd have thunk it?
I fucking know. I know, right? Look, there was a comment made under the last preview show, guys, about us not, or Spencer greatly showing attention to the women fighters in the UFC. Look, we love the women fighters in the UFC. Sometimes if their fights fall lower down the card, we just run out of a little bit of time. And I mean, yeah, that's just the way it goes. You're looking at a guy who will shine probably the biggest light in Irish women's mixed martial arts as well. So we love women's mixed martial arts here. We don't discriminate against women's mixed martial arts. It's just, you know, if they fall down lower in the card, we do run out of a little bit of time. And unfortunately, that's the case here as well. Let's highlight it, Spencer. We do have Pereira Rodriguez coming in to fight Gillian Robertson, who's moving down to the 115-pound division here. What's your thoughts on this one? Rodriguez, an undefeated prospect coming in here.
Shout to Tiff. We appreciate you watching, leaving comments. Thank you very much. I thought this fight was at flyweight. I thought Pereira Rodriguez was going up. I was happy to see it. Gillian Robertson coming down is interesting. She had success at flyweight. I don't know that this is the right move for her. I don't like the matchup in general. Like when it was at flyweight, I didn't like the matchup because Pereira Rodriguez is gritty. She's tough. She can box. She'll be in her face. And if she can stop takedowns, Gillian Robertson is just fish in a barrel. The fact that she's now cutting weight for it too. This feels like Pereira Rodriguez all day. 10-0. Keep moving forward.
Absolutely. Spencer, when we're looking at the rest of the card, obviously we have another women's bantamweight fight that kicks us off in Jocelyn Edwards versus Lucy Pudilova. I had the chance to see Pudilova do a little bit of work when I was in SBG a couple of weeks ago. Interested to see how she does. When we're looking at the last couple of fights on this that we haven't mentioned, is there anything that's standing out to you or something that we should be looking out for?
I mean, Pudilova is there. We saw her make her return to the UFC, got a good win over Wu Yanan, got a finish. I want to see whether those changes, whether those developments are real and lasting, and what the impact of being an SBG long-term can be for her. Lando Venata has had one of the weirdest careers in UFC history. He's had 12 fights. He's got 4 wins, but some of those losses are questionable and like wild fights like the Tony Ferguson one in his debut. Always interested to see him compete. And Bruna Brazil kicked a girl in the head on the Contender Series last year. And since that shot landed, I have been waiting for her to make her debut. She fights Denise Gomes, who comes from the PVT camp with Jessica Andrade and her girlfriend, Carol Hossa. She's tough, but she's like 21 or 22 years old. She is just raw and grimy and gritty. And I want to see if Bruna Brazil can like hook more people in with more head kicks, because I'm already sold and I'm looking forward to this one. So pay attention to her. She may kick somebody's head into the 7th row.
Absolutely. We all love heads getting decapitated inside the octagon. We've seen it last Saturday night. Will we see it this Saturday night in the main event between Max Holloway and Arnold Allen? Will Max Holloway's featherweight fairy tale continue, or will Arnold Allen bring it crashing down and start a new era at the top of the 145-pound division? It's a big fight for UK MMA and Arnold Allen. I'm looking forward to it. Check out the takeaways on Tuesday, where the guys will be getting in depth and breaking down all the fights, as will Shawnee and Graham on the big podcast on Sunday. We will be back next week for yet another UFC preview. We've got Curtis
Sergey
Blades.
Pavlovich and Curtis Blades.
Curtis Blades. Interesting enough one. We will get into it next week. And yeah, that wraps us up for another preview show, guys. Thanks so much. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, tell us what you like, what you don't like. Thank you as always for watching. We will see you as always again next week. Take care.